Over the past month, I've challenged myself to recreate shots from Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Except, not really. This project was given to me by one of my film professors, and this was basically the first big project that we had for the semester. So when it was being explained to me, what I took away from it is that we pick a cinematographer and we recreate any shots from their most famous works. What I didn't understand is that we have to use 3 films. So this video isn't just gonna be recreating a Space Odyssey, which would honestly be kind of crazy, but we also are going to be doing 2 other films. We've decided on doing Cabaret and Superman, both widely beloved films. But the major caveat to that is that this is due in basically a week, and we're starting from step 1 again. So, yeah. What the fuck? The main thing that I worry about is starting this project thinking that it'll come out amazing, but realize way too soon into it that I bit off more than I can chew. And I've done that a few times before, and I just don't want this project to turn out like that. I knew that something like this would take a lot of time to plan and prepare for, so I really tried to hit the ground running as best as possible and step with the best foot forward. Okay, so I wanted to bring up my Milanote for this actual project. This is not sponsored. Milanote is just a good home base for everything when it comes to planning. So these were the shots that I kind of went through and chose. It's fun to be ambitious, and it's fun to try to go above and beyond because like you don't want to settle, you constantly want to keep growing, and I think this is a really good assignment for that. So even if I don't do the best in the world, I think that it's a great learning experience, and I think I'd learn a lot from it. So after some discussion, I think me and Jonathan decided on doing this shot. I think that it's honestly the most compelling visually, and I think that that's what drew us to it. The only trick is we need to find a way to be able to pull it off. But how do I do it? So I had this idea for this actual shot to recreate it just with lights. So the aperture spotlight mount comes with what are called gobos, and there's this one that looks like a windowsill, and I flipped it sideways and added a red gel to it. And I think that'll work. I think this will be good. Weirdly enough, I think the most time-consuming aspect of this shot was trying to figure out costume. If I was gonna do a shot recreation, I had to be able to, do the shot justice and be able to come up with some type of costume to be able to replicate. And in this shot, he's obviously wearing a space helmet. He's in outer space. This is the shot where he's unplugging the supercomputer. It's very dramatic, and it's one of my favorite shots from the entire film. If you haven't seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, please go watch it. It is so, so good. So I was mulling it over in my head, trying to think, what can I use as a space helmet? And my first thought was Amazon. Yeah, I couldn't find anything. That's the thing. I was looking on Amazon, and there really wasn't that many space helmets that were good quality, that weren't children's Halloween costumes. I wanted to be able to do the shot justice, and I didn't want the main takeaway of this recreation to be how shitty the actual costuming is. So I wanted it to be true to form. I wanted to be able to replicate it as best as I can. And so I got to thinking, motorcycle helmet. I realized that my dad had a few motorcycle helmets that have been sitting in storage for the past 10 years, and they haven't been used. And I was sifting through them, and I found the one that was perfect. And just like that, we have our costume. Yeah, I think this will work. So I set up the spotlight in my room. I added a red gel. Moment of truth. Yep, didn't work. Oh, we got action. And then I framed up the shot. So I spent some time trying to figure out the actual composition of the shot and figure out what I wanted and what looked best. And I ended up finding something really nice and something that I'm very happy with. Although I'm very happy with what I ended up getting, I still have 4 shots left to shoot. I need to hurry. I knew that if I was recreating shots from Jeffrey Unsworth's filmography, I knew that I had to do Cabaret. So me and Jonathan went around to a theater on campus trying to replicate the same type of look. But if you look at this photo, you see that there is a lot of volumetrics to this composition. And I forgot about that, and I forgot that she's on a stage and there's a lot of haze, which is giving us, bright beams of light that's behind her. It wasn't turning out the way we wanted it, and we wasted 2 hours trying to get a shot and it was just pissing me off the entire time.
I also did think it was worth mentioning that it's not like the shoot was a complete waste of time. After I was skimming through everything and was looking over all the footage that I ended up getting, I found a few shots that I was really happy with that I actually considered for the final submission. I'm just saying this just because if you go on a shoot and you're not immediately happy with the results and you set your expectations too high for what you're wanting, that doesn't mean that you can't get shots that you end up really liking. I wanted to start by doing a visual breakdown of the scene because I think that there is a lot of elements to it that to the normal eye, you might not be able to pick up. So this kind of gradient effect has been done by positioning a spotlight very high above her head and aiming it down, but not enough to actually give a rim light. Instead, we're getting a very, very bright key light right here. A key light is typically going to be the brightest light in a scene. So it's so bright even that it's actually overexposed. We also have another fill light right here that's radiating onto her face, that's giving that nice, very soft looking glow onto her face. So we have to remember that this is a stage, so we have to do that justice and we have to light it like how we would if the character was on a stage. So that's gonna be kind of what I'm aiming for. This is what we're trying to work with right now. I got this atmosphere aerosol to kind of fill in the air. And it works exceptionally well.
So this is the setup, right? That looks so stupid.
Although I had to swallow my pride to get this shot, I think that all the elements that I used to create this really came together so well, and I ended up being really happy with the final result. So, moving on. This shot by far took the least amount of time to film. It was honestly the simplest shot that we filmed. We knew we wanted to recreate this shot from the original Superman, where Superman is standing on the edge of a building and we see the city skyline plastered behind him. It's a really, really great shot. And I knew the simplest way for us to do that is go up to the top of a building and do it ourselves. We went to the top of a parking garage. Security actually stopped us, funny enough. I don't have any footage of that, but the security guard did come up to us because Jonathan was standing in like the middle of this platform in the middle of the parking garage on the roof. The security guy came up and was like, "Hey, what are y'all doing?" And we were like, "Oh, sorry, we're just doing like a student project, blah, blah, blah." He's like, "Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure that like we didn't have any jumpers." No, that won't be happening today. We're good. So we ended up getting the shot. I will say this one is definitely the most different than everything else that we've done so far, mainly because it's shot during the day. So it's a much brighter scene. I think it honestly turned out really well. Sometimes the most simplest things turn out the best, and sometimes it's better if you don't overcomplicate things. I think this is a good example of that. At this point in the process, I was kind of rushing to get it done, and I wasn't prioritizing making this video over it, so I don't have much footage of us actually working on it, unfortunately, but I'll tell you about it. Trying to tie back into the Stanley Kubrick of it all, although these next few shots aren't necessarily a direct copy of shots from 2001, I wanted to try to emulate the same landscapes that Stanley Kubrick has in 2001: A Space Odyssey. He builds this world that is so vast and wide and almost empty feeling. And to be able to do this, I went to the most geometrical building on my campus, the Art and Architecture building. With the sheer brutalist architecture that this building offers, it has a lot of narrow hallways, but the duality of also having very vast open spaces at the same time, which I thought was a really cool contrast to have, which I thought was the perfect place to do these next shots.
These shots were very fun to film, and I'm very happy with how they turned out. I honestly, with these shots, there wasn't anything that I needed to add to them. I chose to not add any extra lights, any like special color grading, and just basically everything that you see is straight from the camera. The super wide shot with a very deep depth of field, I really like this because it's simple. He's being lit with that overhead, and that's all you really needed. Like, I'm wanting to convey this kind of doom and gloom style, and I think it was perfect.
So that's pretty much all I have for you all. Those were my 5-shot recreations. I'm not gonna lie, when I first started this project, I was really stressed out because it felt like things kept changing and I kept on having to pivot. Situations are good like that because it gives you real world experience because, you know, if you're doing a shoot for a client and say it's raining outside and you want it to be sunny, you're gonna have to pivot and change plans. It's good whenever you're going into things like this to constantly be on your toes and expect things to change, because they always will. But yeah, I genuinely had so much fun making this video. I've been filming this for about 21 days now. And yeah, let me know if you all want more content like this. I do wanna recognize that this is very different than anything else I've made on my channel, other than my short films, of course. I felt like this was a good way to kind of give some perspective on student filmmaking because I feel like it's its own niche category. But yeah, let me know if you want more content like this. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Bye, hoes.